I never thought I'd find myself writing about this. I always believed that my marriage was solid. I mean, aren't all relationships a bit of a roller coaster? Mine was no different. My wife, Jenna, and I had been together for over 7 years. We had our ups and downs, sure, but we had built a life together. I was a tech consultant, working long hours but always making time for her. Jenna had her job as a nurse, and while it was demanding, we always found ways to connect. Or so I thought. The signs of trouble started subtly. Jenna began spending more time at work, picking up extra shifts and coming home late. At first, I supported her. She loved her job. But then I noticed little things. Her phone was always face down and she started to get defensive if I looked at it. I brushed it off initially. I mean, who doesn't guard their phone a bit? But then I found her acting distant, skipping out on dinner dates and hitting the gym for stress relief without even mentioning it beforehand. One evening, I came home early, hoping to surprise her with dinner. I walked into our house, expecting the warm smell of her cooking, but instead it was cold and dark. I figured she must have gone for a jog or something, so I sat down and waited. After an hour, I started to worry. I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. That's when I noticed her bag on the counter. Curiosity got the best of me and I dug through it. That's when I found it, a receipt for a fancy hotel downtown dated a week earlier. My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The anger rushed in like a tidal wave. I couldn't believe it. I thought back to all the times I'd tried to support her, the times I'd reassured myself that everything was fine. My mind raced with possibilities, with scenarios far worse than I could imagine. It was late and I knew I needed answers. I waited for what felt like an eternity. When Jenna finally walked in, her demeanor was casual, like she'd merely been out running errands. I confronted her immediately. "Where have you been?" I demanded, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. She looked startled, her eyes widening as she stammered out something about being stuck at work. I held up the hotel receipt and that's when the facade crumbled. "What's this, Jenna?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She tried to play it off, saying it was just a work conference. "You know how it is in nursing. Sometimes we have to stay late for things. It's not what it looks like." Her excuses tumbled out like a poorly rehearsed script. I could see the panic in her eyes, the way she fidgeted with her hair. I felt betrayed, furious, but most of all heartbroken. I couldn't believe the woman I had loved and trusted could lie to my face like this. I demanded the truth, and finally she cracked. Okay, I've been seeing someone else," she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. My world shattered. It wasn't just an affair, it was a betrayal of everything we had built together. I don't remember much of what happened next. I was a storm of emotions, anger, sadness, disbelief. I had trusted her. I had fought hard to build a life together, only to find that she had been sharing our dreams with someone else. Some pilot, she said, a chance encounter. The irony of her job made the whole situation even more painful. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. In that moment, my heart ached, but I also felt something else stirring within me, determination. I realized I had to take control of the situation. I couldn't let this define me. I decided then and there that I would not wallow in despair. I would turn this betrayal into something that would lead to my own freedom, an adventure without her. And so, a plan began to form in my mind. After the confrontation, I was left reeling. Jenna's betrayal felt like a ghost haunting every corner of our home. I didn't want to wallow in anger or sadness. I needed to channel this pain into something productive. I spent the next few days in a haze, going through the motions at work but feeling utterly disconnected. I avoided Jenna as much as possible. I couldn't bear to look at her without feeling that familiar swell of rage and heartbreak. It was during one of these sleepless nights that I made my decision. I would travel. I had always wanted to see the world, to break free from the daily grind and experience life beyond my cubicle. I decided I would take a sabbatical from my job. I could make it work. I had been saving for years for a dream trip. Now it felt like my escape from the emotional prison I was living in. I started by planning out my itinerary. I wanted adventure, excitement, something to counter the betrayal that had shattered my heart. I planned a whirlwind tour: Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, the places I had always dreamed of seeing. I wanted to live for myself, not for anyone else. I began to research everything: flights, accommodations, and must-see attractions. The more I immersed myself in these plans, the more alive I felt. Each booking was a step away from Jenna and toward my own happiness. On the day I was set to leave, I packed my bags with a mix of excitement and a hint of nervousness. I felt liberated but also anxious about the journey ahead. Before I walked out the door, I looked back at the home we had shared. A place that had once brought me warmth was now just a reminder of betrayal. I needed to leave it behind. When I arrived in Paris, the city enveloped me like an embrace. The monuments, the cafes, the lifestyle, it was everything I had imagined and more. I spent days exploring the streets, sipping coffee at little bistros and visiting iconic landmarks. I felt like a new man, unencumbered by the weight of past grievances. I even met some fellow travelers. They were from all walks of life, sharing stories and laughter. It was refreshing. One night while dining at a quaint restaurant near the Seine, I struck up a conversation with a woman named Sarah. She was adventurous and free-spirited, traveling through Europe on a whim. We connected over our love for travel and exploration. There was a spark between us, and for the first time since my world had fallen apart, I felt a flicker of joy. We spent the next few days sightseeing together, enjoying the magic of Paris. But even in this whirlwind of new experiences, Jenna lingered in the back of my mind. I remembered her excuses, her lies, how she had discarded our love as if it meant nothing. It fueled my fire for revenge. I wasn't going to let her get away with this betrayal. I began to think about how I could make her feel even a fraction of the pain I had endured. As I traveled from one breathtaking destination to another, I devised a plan. I would document my adventures, posting beautiful photos of my travels on social media. I could showcase a life filled with happiness and excitement that she would no longer be a part of. I wanted her to see what she lost and to regret her choices. This was my way of reclaiming my narrative. My next stop was Tokyo, a city that buzzed with life and energy. I immersed myself in the culture, savoring sushi, exploring ancient temples, and taking in the neon-lit streets. I was living my best life, but I still had Jenna in my crosshairs. I wanted her to see me moving on, thriving, something she would never have again. With each passing day, my heart began to heal. I was discovering who I was outside of my marriage, what made me happy, and what I wanted from life. The world was vast, filled with possibility, and I was finally ready to embrace it. I had shifted my focus from revenge to self-discovery, but I still had remnants of anger lurking beneath the surface. It was during my time in Tokyo that I decided to confront Jenna one last time. I could feel the need to finalize my closure. I sent her a message, asking if we could talk. I wanted her to know that I was moving on, but I also intended to make her feel the weight of her actions. I wanted her to understand the magnitude of her betrayal. As I prepared for our conversation, I realized that I needed to be calm and collected. This wasn't just about revenge. It was also about finding closure for myself. I had to show her that I was no longer the man she had taken for granted. I wanted her to see what she had lost, a man ready to seize his future, to thrive without her by his side. I couldn't wait to see her reaction when I told her everything I had experienced and how I had transformed my pain into something beautiful. This was my journey, and I was ready to embrace it fully, with or without her. After a few days in Tokyo, I finally got a response from Jenna. She agreed to meet. My heart raced as I prepared for our conversation. I knew I had to remain calm and composed, but the mix of emotions swirling inside me was overwhelming. I had transformed my pain into adventure, but I needed to confront the person responsible for it all. We decided to meet at a cafe in our hometown. I arrived first, sitting at a table that felt too small for the weight of the conversation that was about to unfold. The familiar surroundings felt foreign now, tainted by the memories of betrayal. When Jenna walked in, I felt a wave of emotions crash over me, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of empowerment. She looked nervous, her usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. "Hey," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Her voice wavered slightly, and I could tell she was on edge. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Thanks for coming." We exchanged small talk for a moment, but the tension was palpable. I could see that she was trying to gauge my mood, but I was determined to stick to my plan. I took a deep breath, and before I could second guess myself, I dove in. "I've been traveling," I started, watching her expression shift from confusion to surprise. "I'm in a much better place now, Jenna. I realize that I don't need you to be happy." Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought she might cry. "What do you mean? You're not serious. You can't just leave everything behind and leave everything behind." I interrupted, my voice rising. "You're the one who left our marriage behind the moment you decided to cheat on me. You thought I wouldn't find out, didn't you?" Her defenses kicked in and she tried to explain herself, claiming it was a moment of weakness, that she had been feeling lost. I listened, but I knew it was just that, excuses. She painted a picture of her life spiraling out of control, but I wasn't buying it. I had spent too long believing her lies. "I have spent the last few months discovering who I am without you," I said. "I've traveled to places I've always dreamed of visiting. I've met amazing people who have shown me that life is full of possibilities. I'm happier than I've ever been." Jenna's expression shifted, a mix of anger and remorse crossing her face. "So you think you're better off without me? You think you can just forget everything we had?" "Maybe I can. Maybe it's time I stopped holding on to a relationship that was built on lies," I shot back. "You had your chance and you threw it away." For a moment, silence hung between us. The clinking of cups and the chatter of other patrons faded into the background. Jenna's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me into feeling sorry for her. "I loved you, Jenna," I said, my voice softer but the pain still evident. "But I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me. You've shattered my trust and the pieces can't be put back together." She reached out for my hand, but I pulled away instinctively. "Don't," I said. "You don't get to comfort me after what you've done." The conversation took a turn when she bravely confessed how she had felt trapped in our marriage. The irony of her accusations struck me hard. "You made me feel suffocated, like I couldn't breathe. I needed excitement. I thought I'd find it with someone else," she admitted, her voice trembling. I couldn't believe it. "So you thought the answer was to sleep with a stranger? You think that's how you solve your problems?" I asked incredulously. "You could have talked to me, you could have told me you were unhappy, but you chose to betray me instead." She slumped back in her chair, her defenses crumbling. "I was scared," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how to express it." I shook my head, realizing that this conversation was futile. "You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat. I'm not responsible for your choices, Jenna." The conversation spiraled into a mess of accusations and apologies, but I stood firm. I wanted her to understand the depth of her betrayal, not just for me, but for herself. I needed her to see that her actions had consequences. I had already begun to heal, and I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices. As we wrapped up our meeting, I looked her in the eye. "This is goodbye, Jenna. I'm moving on. And you should too. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it won't be with me." I stood up, leaving her stunned and speechless. As I walked away from the cafe, I felt a mix of relief and liberation wash over me. I had confronted the source of my pain, and now I was free to focus on my journey ahead. With each step, I felt lighter. I knew that I had the world at my feet, and I was determined to explore it fully. I felt like I had finally taken back my power, and nothing would stop me from embracing the life I deserved. As I continued my travels, a profound sense of clarity settled over me. The confrontation with Jenna had been a turning point, a chance for me to reclaim my narrative. I moved from Tokyo to Sydney, soaking in the sun-soaked beaches, the vibrant culture, and the laid-back lifestyle. I was no longer the man who had loved someone who betrayed him. I was a man rediscovering joy and adventure. One of my first days in Sydney, I found myself standing at the edge of Bondi Beach, watching the surfers ride the waves and the sun glimmering on the water. I felt an overwhelming urge to dive into the ocean, to immerse myself in this new chapter of my life. I rented a surfboard, and for the first time I felt a rush of adrenaline that had long been absent from my life. As I paddled out, I could feel the salty breeze on my face, a reminder that I was free, free from the weight of a failed marriage and the lies that had consumed me. Over the next few weeks, I explored everything Sydney had to offer. I climbed the Sydney Harbour Bridge, visited the iconic opera house, and indulged in the local cuisine. Each experience was like a balm for my soul, healing the wounds that Jenna had inflicted. I was surrounded by vibrant energy, and for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely happy. I met people along the way, fellow travelers who shared their stories and experiences. One night, I joined a group of backpackers at a beach bonfire. We laughed, shared stories, and connected over our mutual love for adventure. It felt surreal to be around people who didn't know my past, who saw me as I was now, a man who had shed his old skin and emerged stronger. But I still had that lingering desire for revenge, not out of malice, but as a way to heal. I decided to take it a step further. I began to document my travels on social media, sharing breathtaking photos of my adventures and the experiences I was having. I wanted Jenna to see it all, the life she was missing out on because of her choices. I wanted her to feel a twinge of regret, to realize that I was thriving without her. I crafted each post carefully, choosing images that captured the essence of joy and freedom. I wrote captions about embracing life, stepping out of my comfort zone, and finding happiness in unexpected places. It was a way of showing her that I wasn't wallowing in despair. I was celebrating my newfound freedom. As I traveled further into Australia, I found myself in the vibrant city of Melbourne. It was here that I stumbled upon a local art gallery featuring stunning works from emerging artists. I felt inspired. I wanted to create something too. I enrolled in a photography class, eager to learn how to capture the beauty around me through my own lens. During one of the classes, I met a woman named Emily. She was artistic, passionate, and had an infectious laugh that made me forget the pain of my past. We bonded over our love for creativity, and as we spent more time together, I found myself drawn to her. Emily was everything Jenna wasn't: genuine, open, and unafraid to express her feelings. One evening, after a long day of shooting photos, we decided to grab dinner at a local restaurant. Over a plate of fresh seafood, we shared stories about our lives, our dreams, and our journeys. I found myself laughing more than I had in months. The best part, I realized I wasn't comparing Emily to Jenna. I was simply enjoying her company for who she was. As we talked, I found myself opening up about my past, about my marriage to Jenna and the emotional fallout that had followed. Emily listened intently, and instead of pitying me, she encouraged me to embrace my journey. "You're on a path to discovering yourself," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Don't let anyone hold you back from that." Her words resonated deeply. With me, I had spent too long allowing Jenna's betrayal to define my self-worth. Emily was a breath of fresh air, and the more I got to know her, the more I realized that I was ready for a new connection, one based on honesty and mutual respect. As the weeks passed, Emily and I grew closer. We explored Melbourne together, sharing experiences and creating memories. I found myself laughing again, something I thought I had lost forever. Each moment with her felt like a step toward healing, and I cherished it all. But even as I indulged in the excitement of this new relationship, I kept Jenna in mind. I had come too far to let my past haunt me. So, one evening, while sitting on the balcony of my apartment overlooking the city, I decided to send her one last message. I wanted her to know that I had moved on, that I was happy, and that I hoped she would find her own path to healing. I typed out my thoughts carefully, letting each word reflect the growth I had undergone. "Jenna," I wrote, "I hope you're doing well. I wanted to let you know that I've been traveling and discovering a lot about myself. I'm in a good place now, and for that I thank you. I wish you the best moving forward." After hitting send, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had finally found closure. I was ready to embrace this new chapter of my life with Emily and explore the world together, free from the shadows of betrayal that had once held me captive. My journey was far from over, but I was finally on the right path, one filled with hope, adventure, and a future I could look forward to. As I settled into my new life in Melbourne, I felt a sense of peace that had been absent for too long. My relationship with Emily blossomed into something beautiful. We explored the city together, delving into its vibrant art scene, attending music festivals, and simply enjoying each other's company. Every moment painted a vivid picture of joy, laughter, and connection. It felt incredible to have someone by my side who appreciated me for who I was, not who I used to be. I remember one weekend, we decided to take a road trip along the Great Ocean Road. Scenery was breathtaking, towering cliffs, lush greenery, and the stunning ocean crashing against the rocks. As we drove, I felt the weight of my past drifting further away. With Emily, I could be myself, free from the scars that Jenna had left behind. We sang along to the radio, shared stories of our dreams, and took countless photos, each snapshot a reminder that I was finally living my life fully. However, even amidst the joy, the lingering remnants of my past occasionally surfaced. There were moments when I would catch myself pondering what Jenna was doing or how she would react to the life I was now leading. But instead of dwelling on those thoughts, I used them as motivation to keep moving forward. I was no longer defined by my past. I was crafting a new identity. One afternoon, as we lounged on the beach, Emily turned to me and said, "You know, I've seen how much you've transformed since we met. It's inspiring." Her words struck a chord, and I couldn't help but reflect on the journey I had taken. I had gone from devastation to rediscovery, and it felt empowering to realize how far I had come. As our relationship deepened, I also found myself thinking more about Jenna. I wondered if she had ever reflected on her choices, if she had felt any remorse for the pain she caused. I had let go of anger, but my journey toward forgiveness was still a work in progress. I didn't want to harbor resentment. I wanted to be free of any emotional baggage that might hold me back. So, I made the decision to reach out to the mutual friends we had shared during our marriage. I wanted to know how Jenna was doing, if she had taken the steps to change, if she had acknowledged the hurt she had caused. I felt it was important to have a complete understanding of my past before fully embracing my future with Emily. When I contacted a couple of our friends, I learned that Jenna had struggled after I left. She had taken time off work, spent a lot of time grappling with her choices, and had been working on herself. One friend mentioned she had even gone to therapy, which surprised me. Part of me was relieved to hear that she was making an effort to confront her demons. This information stirred something within me. I realized that while Jenna had hurt me deeply, she was also a person deserving of growth and second chances. I remembered the woman I had fallen in love with, the one full of dreams and aspirations. I couldn't forget the pain, but perhaps I could acknowledge her journey to healing as well. As I processed these thoughts, I shared them with Emily. She listened intently as I explained how I was feeling. "It's okay to want closure, you know," she said softly. "But don't let it hold you back from your happiness. You're on a new path now." Her words resonated with me. I knew I had to let the past breathe. I didn't need a friendship with Jenna, but I could choose to forgive her. It was a conscious decision to release the anger that had no place in my new life. I understood that forgiveness was more for me than it was for her. With that realization, I decided to take a final step. I wrote Jenna another message. This time, it wasn't about my life or moving on. It was about forgiveness. I expressed my hope that she was finding happiness and working toward becoming a better version of herself. I wished her well, genuinely, and hoped she would learn from her choices. As I hit send, I felt a sense of weight lifting from my shoulders. It was freeing to know that I had let go of the past without letting it define my present or my future. I was finally ready to embrace the life I had built with Emily wholeheartedly. The following weeks were filled with laughter, exploration, and moments of pure joy. Emily and I took spontaneous weekend trips, dined at new restaurants, and spent lazy afternoons soaking up the sun. I was living my best life, and I couldn't help but feel grateful for the journey that had led me to this point. One evening, as we strolled along the Yarra River, I stopped to take in the breathtaking view of the city skyline reflecting on the water. It was a perfect moment, and I turned to Emily, heart full. "Thank you for being a part of this adventure," I said, genuinely. "I couldn't have gotten here without you." She smiled, her eyes sparkling in the twilight. "We're just getting started," she replied. And in that moment, I knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be, no longer shackled by my past but empowered by it. I had taken the pain of betrayal and transformed it into the joy of rediscovery, and it had led me to a future brimming with promise. As I walked hand in hand with Emily, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next. I had learned that life is a journey filled with unexpected turns, but as long as I remained open to new experiences, happiness was always within reach. As I continued my journey with Emily, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. I had conquered my past and transformed it into something beautiful. But life, as we all know, is unpredictable, and the unexpected can sometimes bring everything to a head. One evening, while enjoying a quiet dinner at a charming restaurant in Melbourne, I received a message that shifted the ground beneath my feet. It was from one of our mutual friends, someone I hadn't spoken to in a while. The message was brief but sent my heart racing. "Hey, I just heard from Jenna. She's back in town and wants to talk to you." My stomach knotted. After everything I had gone through, I thought I had put that chapter to rest. I had wished her well and had moved forward with my life, but the thought of facing her again stirred up a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me felt anxious, while another part of me was curious about what she wanted. I shared the news with Emily, who was surprisingly calm about it. "It's your decision," she said gently. "You've come so far and you owe it to yourself to handle it however you see fit. Just remember how much you've grown." Taking a deep breath, I decided to meet Jenna. I wanted to approach this with an open mind but also be prepared. I didn't want to slip back into the pain I had once felt. I needed to keep my guard up. We agreed to meet at a cafe, the same one where we had our last conversation. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early, my mind racing with possibilities. I replayed every moment of my past with Jenna, recalling the highs and lows, the love and betrayal. But as I sat down at the same table, I reminded myself of how far I had come. I was no longer the man she had hurt. I was a stronger, wiser version of myself. When Jenna walked in, she looked different. There was a vulnerability in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. She approached me slowly, and as we exchanged pleasantries, I could feel the weight of the past hanging in the air. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice shaky. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since you left, and I wanted to apologize." Her words were sincere, but I remained cautious. "Apologies don't erase what happened, Jenna. You hurt me, and it took a long time to heal from that." "I know," she admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "I've spent months in therapy trying to understand why I made such terrible choices. I was lost and scared, and I took it out on you. I'm truly sorry for everything." I listened, allowing her words to wash over me. Part of me wanted to remain angry, to remind her of the pain she had caused, but I also recognized the importance of this moment. It was a chance for closure, perhaps even healing for both of us. "Have you made any changes?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Are you working on yourself?" "Yes," she replied earnestly. "I've been focusing on my mental health, and I've realized that I need to take responsibility for my actions. I've learned so much about myself, and I want to be better." I nodded, taking it all in. I could see the sincerity in her eyes. While it didn't undo the hurt, it was a step in the right direction. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Jenna," I said, my voice steady. "But I need you to understand that I'm no longer tied to that part of my life. I've moved on." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know, and I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am. You deserve to be happy." We sat in silence for a moment, allowing the weight of our conversation to settle. It was bittersweet, an acknowledgement of the past and the acceptance of our separate paths. I realized that while Jenna had hurt me, I had also grown from that experience. I had become a stronger, more confident person. As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a sense of relief. I had confronted Jenna not out of anger, but out of a desire for closure. I knew that I could now fully embrace my life with Emily, free from the shadows of my past. I left the cafe feeling lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. As I walked down the familiar streets of Melbourne, I couldn't help but smile. I had come full circle. The journey had been difficult, but every step had led me to this moment, a life filled with joy, adventure, and a love that was genuine. When I returned to Emily, I couldn't wait to share what had happened. I spoke to Jenna, I told her, my heart full, and I finally feel at peace. Her eyes sparkled with understanding. "That's amazing. I knew you could do it. You've grown so much." As we embraced, I felt a sense of completeness. I was ready to move forward, to continue building the life I had always dreamed of. My past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I was free to create my own happiness, and that was the greatest adventure of all.